And so we're with Chris Burress, who is the developer of ESS60 and has, together with his partner and associates, has launched the company C60EVO. They've been in business for over 20 years. Please correct me on these facts, but we're responsible for the creation of practically all of the C60 on the market, including the C60 that was used in the tests that led to the award of the Nobel Prize in 1996, I think.
Well,
But,
so I think that there's a little juxtaposition.
oh,
So,
okay, sure.
Yeah, it was discovered in 1985 at Rice University,
Sure.
and then fast forward, and it was great for industrial applications. In 2012, they did this amazing study. It was supposed to be a toxicity study. It became a longevity study, the longest longevity study result on mammals ever in 2012. Right. And yes, we did provide the raw C60, and our name is actually mentioned in that original study. So we're very, very proud to have been serving the fullerene community since 1991, which is a little over 28 years.
Well, you know, I was reading, and it says that one of the proven primary effects of C60 on the human body is its effects on the free radicals. And could you talk a bit about that?
Yes. Yeah, so that's really I like to take things kind of back and then we'll bring them forward.
Sure.
So in the early days of C60, it was recognized that C60 would be what's called a great electron sponge. So it has the ability, C60, if you imagine a soccer ball where the lines on the soccer ball represent the bonds between the carbon atoms, you have the spherical molecule of 60 carbon atoms. It's got six-fold symmetry. So it can hold electrons. It can actually hold a lot of electrons and then release those electrons. And because of its symmetry, it's a very stable molecule. And they figure and it may be the case that we end up with buckyball, that's the affectionate term for C60, buckyball batteries, because we're all familiar with our cell phones and the lithium batteries, and on day one we're all excited because our cell phone lasts more than a day, and then it seems like right at 12 months or right whenever our lease is over, now the battery starts no longer functioning as well as it did. And that's because of degradation of the physical degradation that occurs because of picking up electrons, as charge and then releasing electrons as powering your cell phone. So early on, it was understood that this six-fold symmetry was really powerful and it could hold a lot of electrons. And then you fast forward, now we understand that it's a great antioxidant. So in our bodies, we're all familiar with vitamin C. It's probably the greatest antioxidant or the most famous antioxidant that everybody's familiar with. And what happens in the processes, and this is typically in the mitochondria, which is the engine of every cell in our body. In the mitochondria, you create these free radical species, and they're assigned oxygenation species. And what happens is C60 can absorb those, and then we don't know exactly what it's doing. We know in a Petri dish, that's where the data comes from. In a Petri dish, it's 172 times more powerful than vitamin C. But we certainly don't have any vitamin C research that shows the extension of the life of rats by 90%. So it's clearly doing something different. But in a Petri dish, it's more powerful as an antioxidant than vitamin C.
Right, right. Now, here, Patty Greer is going to join us. Let me, Patty, hi. I don't know what occurred.
Hello, Patty.
Patty, can you hear us?
There we go. Alfred, he's back.
Yay!
Yes.
Oh, good. Here we are. I don't know. So.
I don't know. Oh.
Okay, I can see the Patty's there.
Okay, here we go. Let me bring this up again. I think we're streaming live on Facebook, and here we are. And I think that in all the excitement, Facebook may be saying hi.
Hey, Facebook.
in a strange way. So, Patty, we were just Chris was just giving us an an introduction to the free radical and to the antioxidant power of C60, and was mentioning that vitamin C was a very powerful antioxidant, and that C60, by some measurements, is thought to be about 170, 172 times more powerful than vitamin C. And I was about to ask him the question, which may or may not be a scientific question, but it's sort of a rational question. Well, I know, and I've spoken to people who talk about the much vaunted vitamin C preventive use of using vitamin C to prevent cancer. And so, because it's an antioxidant. Now, by that same logic, wouldn't you have sort of a prophylactic effect of taking vitamin C every day would have this tremendous antioxidant effect, which would ward off all these environmental diseases that we're at effect of, like cancer, etc. Would you like to address that issue?
Absolutely. So vitamin C was kind of pushed to the forefront by a Dr. Linus Pauling. He's a two-time Nobel Prize winner. And I actually had the pleasure of seeing him speak at the University of Houston campus one time. So he pushed forth a lot of, he actually in his speech, he talked about kind of quote unquote torturing his graduate students, because he had them take massive amounts of vitamin C, and then they had to collect the urine as it came out, and they were kind of keeping track of was any vitamin C getting resident in their body. And then in his later years really pushed that vitamin C was, a cure. I won't say a cure-all, but really had a lot of healing powers, and pushed that to the forefront. So it's kind of him that causes us to have that conversation. And then you ask, like, would there be prophylactic effects of, and again, I like to make the distinction between C60, right, and ESS60. So C60 is for industrial applications. If you process it improperly, it's, peer-reviewed published research shows it to be harmful. ESS60 is C60 that's been processed for safer human consumption. And so you asked if ESS60 in olive oil specifically, or in one of the oils, but we like to talk about olive oil. That's where the research is, and where research found, based company. So we like to make the right decisions based on scientific research. So ESS60 in olive oil, if you go back and look at the original study, that original study did have the group of rats that were given ESS60 in olive oil, and that's the C60 Evo formulation, live 90% longer. But they also died tumor-free. And it's a really remarkable result, because a typical Wistar rat dies with a known amount of tumors, and that amount of tumors is a linear. So the longer the rat lives, the more tumors they have. So despite the fact that these rats, given the C60 Evo formulation, lived 90% longer, those rats had no tumors. So it's almost not even an implication, right? It's the direct result in that study was that C60 had a very prophylactic effect in terms of tumor growth inside those rodents.
Right. So so that the ESS60 then, there's a body of research, which by extension we can take presumably we can take the vitamin C body of research, thanks to Linus Pauling and many other scientists, and all of those, and by extension carry it over to ESS60. Is that sort of a fair?
Well, okay, so certainly it's logical,
extension?
right? Certainly
Yeah.
it's logical. If we're saying that vitamin C is an antioxidant, and it was pushed forth that it may have these prophylactic effects on cancer, and then you now have ESS60 in olive oil, which is a known antioxidant. By extension, those would be they would equate and make you assume the same result. Now, especially if you couple that with the original research where the rats lived 90% longer and didn't have any tumors. I think you have to be careful when you're making this, because the mechanism of action of vitamin C and ESS60 in olive oil, we don't know the mechanism in ESS60 in olive oil. And so it may be acting in a very, very different way. And so, to make that extension, you've got to be really careful. And this goes back to the fundamental piece, the fundamental principles of science, right? What you did is you just put forth a hypothesis. And so now we could go formulate, put together a study and test that hypothesis, right? And you could start it in Petri dishes and kind of understand what vitamin C does and what ESS60 in oil might do when they're exposed to cells. This is interesting, kind of related, well, definitely related to cancer in a Petri dish. So again, not in human trials, not even in rodent trials, not in any sort of animal trials. In a Petri dish, if you take healthy cells and you take cancerous cells and you introduce an anti-cancer agent, right? So cancer treatments are poison, and you have the presence of ESS60 in olive oil, you end up, the presence of ESS60 in olive oil protects the healthy cells and increase the efficacy of the anti-cancer agent towards the cancer cells. So that's pretty profound stuff. Again, just note that when you're talking about a Petri dish experiment, how it translates into first mammal studies and then potentially human studies is totally, there's a lot of enzymes and everything else going on in the body that can change that. Now, to kind of get back to your question, can we make this assumption? I think it's dangerous to make that assumption. I think that you have to hang your hat on, we've got this peer-reviewed published research, those rats live twice as long. Normally a rat that lived twice as long would have twice as much tumors, and in fact these rats didn't have any tumors, and I think you've got to let that stand on its own until you understand the mechanisms that are causing the result.
And I would like to say something about that 2012 Burres Patty study where the rats lived 90% longer with the ESS60 formulation. Chris and his partner Robert at SES Research in Houston have already begun reproducing that test. And they're going to do a better version. I'm going to let him talk about the modifications, but I'm really excited about this. What if they don't kill the rats, which they did at the other experiment at 90% longer? They went, okay, well, we're not being paid anymore. And the scientists, ended it by ending the rats' lifespan. But what if they went 200% long instead of 90? What is going to be different about your new test, Chris, that you guys are doing?
Yeah, we're excited about getting this started. It's, again, the steps in the scientific process are, what is the hypothesis? Let's do a study. And in this case, the hypothesis actually was that C60 was going to be harmful. It was a toxicity study. What was the result? Well, the result was the rats lived 90% longer and didn't have any tumors. And so now the next step is just for another lab to reproduce it. That happened back in 2012. Nobody stepped up to really reproduce those results. Part of the reason is they're very expensive, but it is the next step in the scientific process. And we've actually already started that. So we're pretty excited. It's first steps with this particular lab in order to get that study moving forward. The next thing, and the thing that we're going to do different, right? So there's a lot of opportunities to improve on it, but still reproduce the original results. So in the original study, the rats were actually not dosed until month 10. A typical Worcester rat lives 32 months. So about 1/3 of their life had passed prior to them getting any doses. And again, they got the control group got water. There was another control group that got olive oil. And then the third group got the C60 EVO formulation. And so they were dosed from month 10 until month 17 only. So just 7 months of their, ostensibly 32-month life. And then they stopped dosing at month 17. And even though they stopped dosing at month 17, again, those rats lived out to month 62. Just a kind of slight correction, they only euthanized one of the rats at the end of the study. So they were basically 2+ years past the length of time their study should have taken. They were down to 2 rats. One of the rats died, and then they euthanized the last rat to finish their study. So yeah, it could have been longer, but statistically it wouldn't have extended, the 90% by that much, because it was just one remaining rat in the C60 EVO formulation group. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually continue to dose the rats with the C60 EVO formulation, not stop at month 17, just continue to dose them. And a difference that we have, an advantage that we have in that original study, they had to gavage the rats, which is basically stick a tube down their throat into their stomach so that they can make sure that the dosing, I know it sounds horrible, but to make sure that the dosing got in right. And then they stopped that at month 17 because one of the control rats died. And as soon as the control rat died, they're like, hey, gavaging can cause problems. Let's stop gavaging them so that we don't skew the results, right? So if we accidentally improperly gavage an ESS60 olive oil rat, then it's going to die prematurely, and it won't be because it was taking ESS60. It will be because it was improperly gavaged, and that can happen. In our case, what we know now is rats actually like ESS60 and olive oil. We can put it in their food and they'll take it. And we know this, one, because some people have given it to rats, and two, we've got a pet version for cats and a pet version for dogs. And our cats and dogs love the product. So we know that we're going to be able to dose these rats just by controlling the amount of food that they have and make sure that they get the right dosage. And so we're excited about the possibility. You could hypothesize that they're going to get significantly longer than 90%. There's a lot of possibilities of what could happen.
Cool. Yeah, we've knocked Alfred over.
I think we lost his audio. I can see him moving.
Uh-oh.
I didn't put my mute off. Is it proper to hypothesize? I'm kind of moseying in on the scientific method here versus the metaphysical method, which, so sometimes they meet and sometimes they're far apart. From a scientific point of view, is it proper for you to hypothesize, or will you hypothesize as to why it is that ESS60, in fact, resulted in life extension in these rats?
Well, I think it's certainly appropriate to hypothesize. I think when you look, even when you go back to the original discovery of fullerenes and carbon-60 at Rice University, they published a paper in Nature magazine, and that paper actually put forth the concept that this structure of, they had a peak on their equipment that was 60 carbon atoms. And it was, if you were thinking about making sheets of carbon, I'm going to get a little geeky here because I love this subject. If you think about making sheets of carbon, there's no reason that a sheet of 60 should be more abundant than a sheet of 59 carbon atoms or a sheet of 61 carbon atoms. So the fact that in their piece of equipment they had this really high peak at 60 meant that there was something different. It's also interesting that a year prior to them publishing that article in Nature, the discovery of fullerenes, IBM actually had the same result, and they just dismissed it as an anomaly. So they saw this 60 peak, and they said, well, they kind of put their heads together, and they said, well, this seems to be the shape. There's 60 indices on a soccer ball, so we've got this spherical molecule. And they put that in a Nature article really quickly. And it was just a hypothesis at the time. Then it took years in order for them to actually prove it. So yeah, absolutely, it's absolutely fundamentally correct to hypothesize. We don't know the exact way that it's interacting and why these rats live 90% longer. What we do know is current medical thought is that aging is an oxidation and an inflammation process, right? Obviously, oxidation and inflammation being negative processes in the body that cause aging. It's true that ESS60 in olive oil is an antioxidant and an anti-inflammatory. So it's not really surprising that we've got this antioxidant, anti-inflammatory associated with a study where these mammals lived 90% longer.
Now, I've also heard it said that aging is a question of, I forget the exact term, but they are the sort of the tips of the shoelaces at the end of your jeans. It's the telomeres, is it?
Telomeres, yeah.
Yeah, telomeres. So is there any relation between the ESS60 and the telomeres? Is that, or
So telomeres are little things that are attached to the end of your DNA,
yeah,
and basically it's turned out that kind of science has come to understand that as your telomeres get shorter, they get shorter as you age, and so they can be an indication of your lifespan. There are people in the C60 space who are out there saying unequivocally that C60 extends telomere length. If you are to press those people for the research that supports that, there is none. And so I'm excited to say, I would be very excited to say, oh yeah, C60 increases telomere length, and that's proof that you're going to live longer. That would be very, very exciting to present. And it may actually be happening, but I'm very uncomfortable as a scientist from we've been delivering commercial quantities of carbon nanomaterials to scientists around the world. If you think of a research lab that you've ever heard of, right? We've sold fullerenes into those research labs. And so our pedigree is this kind of deeply grounded in science, and it's not correct to run out and say, oh, C60 or ESS60 is extending telomere length. It's possible, but there's no evidence that shows that. And if there is, it's really anecdotal, and it shouldn't be shared like, hey, here's a fact, this is happening. It should be shared like, we looked at one person and we were able to look at their telomere length, and then after they started taking C60, it's longer. I'm not even sure that's possible. It's more likely that an agent like ESS60 and olive oil just prevents the telomeres from shortening over time, not as likely to actually extend the telomeres.
right. And now some of the benefits of ESS60, and perhaps Patty can bring some more anecdotal evidence forward from some of your users. I know that vision improvement. What would that come from? Say the relationship between the use of ESS60 and improvement in vision. Is that again the free radicals, the inflammation? Is that a DNA telomere? Where or I know that we're dealing in a brand new area, so over to you.
Yeah. So it has been reported. This is anecdotal, so I will not. It would be inappropriate for me to say that ESS60 and olive oil improves vision. Like, that would be inappropriate to say. What I can say is we have testimonials where people will suggest to us that it's the product formulation that they're taking that has improved their eyesight, helped repair retina. In fact, we've got one guy that I talk to on a regular basis who's a customer of ours. He had a really deep eye surgery where they had to actually, this is gross, but they had to cut pretty deeply into his eye. And the whole surgery tends to create a huge black eye around the eye. And then all of the whites of the eye are incredibly red. He described a story where he went for his follow-up, and the lady at the reception desk was like, well, why are you here? Usually they know because they can see in your face. Why are you here? And he was like, I'm here for my follow-up. And the reception was like, no, you're not. Like, you can't be here for your follow-up because you don't look like what a follow-up patient is supposed to look like. And so the receptionist and further the optometrist was actually surprised at how quickly he had healed. So we don't know the mechanism. We do know that that ESS60 is a nanomaterial, and so it's able to cross the blood-brain barrier, which is interesting, and it's also able to participate in the mitochondrial function, so the ATP production. And so if you just have significantly more efficient cells, I don't think there's anybody who really doubts that things are going to get better overall.
Right.
I want to talk about my experience, because I feel like mine is not eyes, but it's a whole lot of other things. And I just had in October, 5 months ago, a little basal cell surgery of something on the side of my leg. And at first they scooped it out to test it, and it hurt because it was a scoop of missing skin. But they called me within a day and they said, yeah, we gotta, go take this out. So it had to heal. And a month later, I went in for the real surgery. And when they finished doing what they were doing, I didn't look. I said, show me the bottle. I want to see what you cut out. And it was a diamond shaped piece of skin that was 2 inches by maybe 1 inch, 3/4 of an inch deep in a little bottle. I'm looking at this chunk of my leg. Luckily, it was a minor, the least bad of any skin cancer. But they sewed me up on the inside, sewed me up on the outside. And I take C60 every day, a tablespoon in the morning of C60 EVO olive oil, which is the strongest of all the, I think, C60s available. And after the surgery, I was a little nervous because I have to go up a lot of steps to get to my home. And then in my home, I've got a lot more steps, and I'm looking at this thing on the side of my calf. And luckily it didn't hurt that night. And then the next day I woke up waiting for this horrific recovery. I still today haven't had a minute of pain. Now, I never in my life have experienced any surgery where something that big was removed off me. But the fact that I had no pain in the recovery, I actually called the doctor's office 4 days later and I said, how is this possible? And they said, we've heard this once or twice before. So it was an anomaly. And I'm still looking at the side of my leg, and I didn't start putting C60 on it topically until maybe 4 months, because I didn't want to make any guesses as to, this. I still have had no pain. I'm absolutely stunned at the healing. And yesterday, a medical person looked at it and she was scratching her head. So I do believe that the cells are changing, and far more rapidly. It could be the vitamin C is just banging our system into overdrive of healing. And I also went for a heart scan and a carotid test. I'm in my 60s, so I'm not young, and I was hoping I didn't have a lot of plaque and I was gonna have to worry about a heart attack. My test came back 0 plaque. Now, that one kind of blew my mind and my friend the nurse's mind, because in your 50s, 60s, you usually have a lot of buildup, and I put whipping cream in my coffee. I don't hold back, and I don't know what creates a lot of plaque on your arteries. But when I remember, I also swish my C60 around my teeth, and I have no plaque in my teeth when I do that at least 4 days in a row. So, Chris, how is it honing me out to the point where all of the things that don't really need to be in my system are leaving?
Yeah. So people smarter than me will ultimately figure that out, and we can talk about it and have theories about it. It being a great antioxidant, it being a great anti-inflammatory, it being able to get into the mitochondria and participate in that process, making a healthier cell, are probably the reasons that that you're experiencing benefits, and that really all of our customers. I got to tell you, I'm a skeptic. I'm a scientist. I'm as skeptical as the next person. Really, we started selling this in earnest in about 2018, and people kept calling. It was almost all of 2018. People would call and say, my eyesight has improved, or my son, who, by the way, I'm talking about real testimonials. And anytime I do that, I like to say, it's important to say, the FDA hasn't evaluated our product. It's not intended to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent any disease. So these customers would call me and they're like, my son used to go to the hospital for medical, for mental health issues 4 or 5 times a year. All of 2019, our son didn't go to the hospital. And I'm getting these kind of testimonials, and part of me is like, well, I believe you because you're my customer, but I don't, like, it's hard for me to believe that I ended up with this supplement that seems to be doing so much good for so many people. And I'm just very blessed in that regard.
We thank you as takers.
Yeah. Now, I know that this might be an odd question, and the question of dosage always is a big question around ESS60, and a lot of us who do take it talk to each other, and Patty says a tablespoon, and other people go teaspoons, and I use the milliliter. I'm up to 1 milliliter, I think, a full eyedropper a day. But is it possible to overdose on it? I mean, what's
Well, yeah,
that like?
let's talk about that. But that reminds me, I don't know if anybody else has their bottle available. I'm going to show you what my typical dose is. So I take about 5, really about 7.5, or I take about a teaspoon and a half per day. And on a busy day like this, when I'm doing a later podcast, I'll take a second dose. And it just tastes like olive oil because it's mostly olive oil. When you talk about, is there a known, at what point is it toxic? At what point is it dangerous? I'm aware of a lot of people taking a lot of it, right? You get on YouTube and there's people taking large amounts. Here at the office, we have it readily available. So I tend to take more than the recommended dose. Our current thought process is there is probably a toxicity level for olive oil, right? It probably exists. We know there's a point at which if you drink water too fast, you can actually die from having too much water in your system too quickly. Your body's not able to get rid of it. So there's probably a point at which olive oil is dangerous to you. I don't think it's a cup of olive oil. I think somebody could drink a cup of olive oil and be fine. Like that's a lot of olive oil. And I think that our product is probably safe at that point. So the toxicity level, we don't know. When you talk about dosing, right, really this is the standard challenge when you take some research from a rat and try and start bringing it into humans. So that original research was done on the wrister rats. And if you were to imagine just doing a kilogram per milliliter calculation, we would need to take about a cup of ESS60 and olive oil per dose. That's a lot. But that's not really how you do these calculations. When they take a rat trial and they take it into a human trial, they do what's called an allometric calculation. And this allometric calculation takes into account the metabolism, the difference in metabolism between a rat and in this case, a human. And so I did that allometric calculation and we ended up with right at a 5 ml dose. So you're really at one, if you're doing 1 ml, Alfred, then you're doing about 1/5 of a typical dose, and certainly 1/7 of the dose that I just took. And so I don't know what your current plan is. I don't believe in rushing anyone. I believe everybody should take every product at the point that they understand its value to them, right? So however your body feels. It'll be interesting if your plan is to increase dosage, what differences in experience you have as you get into higher doses. But the typical dose is 5 ml a day. I actually use our MCT product and put it in my coffee. So you have kind of a bulletproof coffee experience, but it's bulletproof plus because it's got ESS60 in it. And then I take my dose as part of my kind of breakfast routine just to make sure that I get it.
Would you talk about what I just learned, which really threw me for a loop? And I think Alfred and I were both taking coconut oil, C60. I took it for years thinking, wow, this stuff's so good. Not realizing that no matter how long you mix coconut oil, it will hold less than half the C60 olive oil will.
Yeah.
Alfred, did you know that?
Yeah, I learned it in the last program that we did with Chris. I mean, this science is so new that we're learning things program by program on a Nobel Prize-winning science.
Yeah.
We're actually learning it show by show, and this may be one of the leading edges of human health evolution, or a human aid. I don't know. What exactly would you call ESS? Is it a health supplement? Is it a medicine? what kind of, where does it fit?
Yeah, so well, I think from a perspective of having people meddle in the industry that are powerful and we might not want in the industry, I think we never want it to be called a medicine. And really, we're not suggesting that it has medicinal purposes. Is why I made the very kind of clear, it's not intended to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent any disease. Yes, I have said that many times and will continue to say it many times. It's really important. So I don't think, I think that we don't want to call it a medicine. It is a naturally occurring molecule. So if you take a candle, and usually you would use a cold steel plate to collect the black soot that comes off of a candle, you can find parts per million, parts per billion of C60 in it. So it's reasonable to actually call this a mineral. And it's a mineral that actually dissolves in olive oil and you consume it. And so as a supplement, right? Just as a supplement, you might take a lot of the supplements that people take are minerals that are necessary for your health and well-being.
Right, right. Now you have actually gone through some fairly extreme experiences over the last couple of years. I mean, in terms of being subjected to radiation, I think, right? That and the C60 has actually been able to benefit that. I mean, we're just talking from an anecdotal point of view, correct?
Yeah, you know,
Actually,
I read
before you
testimonials.
jump into that, Patty, I remembered I kind of didn't address the kind of entire question that Patty had about MCT oil. And the fact that the solubility of ESS60 in olive oil, C60-ESS60, safer for human consumption, in olive oil is about 0.8 milligrams per milliliter. In MCT oil, it's about 0.35, so significantly less than half. So there's like purple products that are out there that I don't think are being forthcoming with the fact that that what you're getting in this purple MCT oil is significantly weaker than what was in the original study, and it's significantly weaker than, say, the olive oil product that we sell.
It just makes me so glad that I met you and learned this. And now I wonder if I had been taking ESS60 for 2.5 years instead of olive oil that was mixed, coconut oil that wasn't even mixed at your place. It was, mixed elsewhere. So who knows about the quality, the purity, once other people start playing with your raw C60 products. Yeah. But I was so grateful all these years. And now that I'm, the age that I am, and I really, really want to heal the last of my maladies, I'm really glad to be on the 0.8 milliliters per milligrams. But that is a fact that, even though we talked about it in the last show, is one of the biggest ones to me, because when I see people ordering coconut oil, I want to respect them, but I'm thinking, you really need to be, are you taking it because it tastes good, or do you want the ESS60, the C60, to affect your health? And if that's what you're looking for, definitely go olive. And I don't typically like olive oil. I don't cook with it. I'm not Italian. I like coconut oil. But now that I know, and I've got all flavors of the ESS60 in MCT organic coconut, in organic avocado, which I was using that until I learned that that has 0.6 milligrams per milliliter. So I want the 0.8, and I have redeveloped my taste for olive oil, and it's just on a spoon in the morning. So people that are so funny about, well, can I put it on my salad and mix it in my smoothie? It's like, it's up to you. But, one spoon in the mouth, it doesn't have much taste. For the benefits, I don't find that I suffer, but, take it on a spoon. It's so easy. For me, yes, I had a very difficult experience last summer. I went on a trip. I left my home for a week. And when I came back, I was going to pack up and move out of a situation where I'd been sharing a home with somebody who all of a sudden got real angry. And when I got home, I luckily had the house to myself for a month. and I was packing up, and I had a beautiful place to move where I am now. And during the course of this, I started getting really sick. I started losing a lot of weight. I found a lot of strange things missing from my life, like my iPhoto library was missing, and very strange things where I thought, oh God, am I imagining this? You know, I mean, but when I hit 109 pounds, I knew I wasn't imagining it from 130. So I was kind of in a panic, and then I was starting to actually lose my meal at night. So I was getting really sick. So I started inviting friends over to help me pack and move because I didn't have the strength. The last week when I was really needing to pack, every half hour I'd have to lay down on the couch. My friend would rub my feet until I came back. And I didn't realize until one of the last days that somebody had left me a bottle, or just put it there for no reason, of carnotite uranium. And I looked at it, and I'd lived in this home for a year. I would have noticed if it had been there with the big label carnotite uranium on it. So I wasn't sure what effect it was going to have, but I was extremely upset, realizing that I better get to the internet and look it up. And then I better get to the doctors and start having tests done to see if this is what was affecting me, that I was actually left a gift of radioactive material, which is really a strange thing for a human to do to another, no matter what you're going through. So I finally got out of the house, and in my new home, I was sweating so badly that I had to change my clothing every 2 hours all night long. I could wring my pajamas out, and I hadn't even started detoxing. I didn't know, I just knew I was sicker than crap, and I was sweating profusely, and it was massive. So I went to a naturopath, and I got on this huge line of remedies. And then he had me have my hair test, my blood test, my urine, my fecal matter, my breath, my saliva, my heart, my carotid. I mean, I had everything tested. And sure enough, the ingredients came back of carnotite uranium. All three of the ingredients that make up that natural occurring mineral were in my blood in the red zone, along with strontium.
Wow.
Strontium, I mean, yes, it's dropped from chemtrails, but I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist and point to the ridiculous strontium, barium, and aluminum problem being dumped on humanity all the time. But for me, there it is in my blood and hair tests. Clear as a bell, red zone, like, why me? So a month later, I'm taking the detox. All of a sudden, I doubled over one day, ambulance to the emergency room. I have been through it. I have absolutely been tested, and now I'm gulping my C60. Not even a tablespoon. I called it tipping, where I just take the bottle and tip it. Anything spills, it goes on my face. Anything doesn't spill, I put it on my hand and rub it on my face. So I'm all about it inside, outside. But when I realized I had to now detox from radioactive materials, it was really upping the game of, wow, body, I really love you, and we're going to make it. So about 2 months ago, I started realizing I am detoxed, overdosed. I'm burping all the time, and I'm not a burping person. So I could tell my body was saying, yo, Patty, you're up to here with your detox. So I kind of cut away every bit of it, but I kept doing my C60 EVO, my ESS60 formulation every day, back to just my little tablespoon. And I feel healed. I feel like I'm on the other side of being poisoned, which is pretty stunning. And I feel my weight is back up almost to where it was. And the main thing is I feel strong again. But I really feel so grateful to the C60 that you guys have been making for so many years. And I'm really also grateful that I finally learned to buy direct from source, because I thought there were all these companies that had a huge, gorgeous lab like yours that were professional with, you know, everything there for C60 manufacturing, because people claim they manufacture C60. And what I've learned is that pretty much you're the only ones in America for 28 years that have been manufacturing it consistently and raising the quality because of public demand. All of a sudden, a lot of us are taking it regularly. I'm not usually one to be a lab rat for anything. And I had 2 different people give me C60 before I had one that was any good. And it took me half an hour from being in agony to stand up and go, oh my God, that is good. And I had already tried 2 other people's C60, but who knows if they stirred it with the lid off or sunlight pouring in and just kind of, you know, there it was, but it was not strong and potent. And now here I am realizing for 1.5 years or 2 years, I was taking coconut oil, which has only 0.35. So maybe that's why, and I'm not young, and I have been, you know, tested, shall we say. I've had definitely my body tested. And I feel today like I'm kind of stronger than I've been in a long time. So I do promote the ESS60 a lot. And I am working with Chris now because I don't think there's a better product anywhere in the world with C60. And I also really love it that you're educating the public to, no matter how long you stir it, coconut oil is here, avocado oil is here, but olive oil is going to hold more C60 than any other oil. If you're taking it for health benefits, emotional, mental benefits, cell regeneration benefits, olive oil, 0.8 from C60EVO.com. I'm only taking your ESS60.
Yeah, you know, and just to go on that, I should mention that people know that we're so grateful that C60EVO.com ESS60 is the sponsor of ExopoliticsTV, and we're very grateful for that. And so if and when you do go and order at C60EVO.com, please use the special code ALWSPEC, because you will get a special, I think it's a 5% discount, correct? And then there is 15% of your purchase will come directly to support the work of Exopolitics TV. And believe me, we go into areas that we are no longer supported by Google because we can't sign the Google agreement, because if you sign the Google agreement, you can no longer say that events are false flags. That's written into the Google contract. So, you know, it's companies like C60 EVO that are a sponsor that's helping us keep on the air. Now, I'd like to say something else, and please excuse me my thing. This is this relates to our programming also, and I'd like to sort of get your feedback on this because it relates to ESS60. You know, because I've been trying to see, well, how exactly do we apply this? We had a guest on here recently who addressed the issue of what we call, you know, within a certain, it's called the ascension. And what that means is that if you look inside the sort of the holographic universe and the holographic reality within which our planet exists, it exists at a certain resonant frequency. And the ascension really means that the frequency within which this planet exists and its environment inside is beginning to increase. And so along with the expansion of consciousness, there's an expansion of the frequency which goes along with the evolution of consciousness and the evolution of the souls, and it's actually cyclical. You can follow it along a 26,000 year cycle, you know, and it goes. And this particular guest, you know, her interdimensional sources were saying that, oh, we're going to reach sort of a high point in this frequency ascension over the next 4 years. It started in 2012 and is going to really accelerate around 2026. But now, with the acceleration, souls that are really wanting to go along with the expansion of consciousness will thrive and go with it. But those bodies that really aren't together with it will begin to pass over and let go of their bodies. And she used the phrase survival of the fittest. And so what really came to me at that moment was ESS60. I mean, I know that it might be something, you might say, oh my God, that's sort of very practical and banal. And I said to myself, well, maybe that's really one reason why I'm taking it, is that it relates to my body's ability to weather through these frequencies and weather through all the environmental stress that we're going through now, not only because of the chaos on the planet, as the dark energy meets the light energy, and that whole good versus evil and light versus dark, but also the fact that we're going through what people call ascension symptoms, or people go to frequency things. This is actual metaphysical reality, and it really helps the ascension. And I know that speaks to a lot of our audience, to the 39,000 subscribers that are out there. There are a lot of people that are into the ascension. And so I'm saying that all you people that are out there and into the ascension, take a look at ESS60 from an ascension point of view, just keeping keeping your entire vehicle and being together as this frequency increases. And I sort of like to get your feedback on that sort of aha flash that I had. So over to you.
Yeah,
well, I'm the woo-woo one of our couple.
let me start with ground. We'll call it grounded, right? And then we can get to Patty. So I just finished a book, and I think this is like a parallel of physical and metaphysical. I just finished the book, and the premise of the book, and it outlined all sorts of ways to extend your life. The whole premise of the book was there's going to be a point where current medical science is able to extend life indefinitely. And it may be, we may be part of that generation. And part of the kind of concept of the book was, how much would it suck to be the last human to die of natural causes, right? Like, we're always, you get hit by a bus, maybe there's no way to bring people back from that, no matter how far advanced we get. But the premise was, let's work very hard to extend your life, because you might be in reach of the grand finish line, if you will, which I think you could draw a parallel to this ascension. And if you are, then you, as long as you cross that line, then you potentially won't die. And so, I think there's interesting parallels in that. And as I was reading that book, of course, the reason I was reading it is trying to understand what are the current thought processes around longevity, and how those thought processes might tie in, with a supplement that extended the life of mammals by 90%.
Well, I think that a lot of people don't want to live longer if they don't feel good. So it's about quality of life to make you even want a longer life. I've been so tested with my health, but now I'm on the other side again. And I'm energetically making it really clear, I'm done being tested. Nobody's allowed to test me ever again. I've done my degree. I'm over it. And I survived. And I'm older than ever now, than I've ever been. But I also am noticing that through my ascension, because I'm the woo-woo of Chris and I, and his partner, Robert. I mean, Robert's business, Chris's science, Patty's woo-woo. But I'm also a true experiencer, because I have been a tipper. Every time I don't feel good, I just tip the bottle. So I'm not scared of it at all. I know we can't overdose, because I feel like I'm kind of the lab rat for SES. I bet I've done more C60 than most people, and I'm only 5'1" or 2", depending on shoes. So, that I'm taking a tablespoon, I'm pretty serious. And I load that spoon up till it almost spills. But then even when I'm done, I wipe the spoon and rub it on my hands. I don't waste any of it. And the coconut oil C60 that I have from C60 EVO, now that I know it's only 0.35, I'm going to be using it for my body lotion. I pour in like a little capful and mix it in with my body lotion and rub it on my skin because I want to, you know, if it's anti-aging, let's see what it can do to the skin. So like Chris says, he puts the coconut in his oatmeal, but a lot of people, and I don't want to be redundant, if you're taking coconut oil, you're getting less than half the dose of C60 that you will in olive oil.
Yeah.
So, and I'm the first person that went, really? I've done that for almost 2 years. So the cosmic part of C60 for me has been that I've had pretty much a great excuse to go postal and go nuts and attack. But there's nothing in me with that energy. And I don't even have pity or judgment about what I just went through. I have kind of a calming because I realize, and I think that C60 has a lot to do with our mental balance. I feel like it has helped me be very neutral and surprisingly calm. When my body really hurts, I'll do some CBD, little gummy chewy things that are just also medicine. But the C60, I mean, I blast it first thing, not first thing in the morning. I drink coffee and I load it up with all kinds of things. But I really believe that this is helping me move through these difficult times in a calm way. I had an interesting conversation with a lady that runs the office down there in Texas. She is fantastic. And we were talking about crystals and how much we love them. And I said, so what have you noticed since you've been taking C60? Because she's also about 2 years in. And she said, you know, the one thing I noticed is that I used to really like crystals, but now I'm liking emeralds. And because I'm a crystal healer, I went, wow, that's interesting because I have a lot of quartz around me, but now my house is filled with amethyst. Now, both of these, because I do crystal healing and work with the vibrational frequencies of stones, both of us moved our frequency up, woo-woo talk, but with the energy of those stones and the ascension of our taste, to me, I was like, now that is interesting. So it's anecdotal again, but it says to me, I'm not the only one. And I wasn't really thinking about, oh my God, you should see the size of this amethyst over here. I just filled my house with big amethyst. And it was just in the last few months as part of my healing. So instead of spending money, you know, distracting myself with all these things, I'm really focused on my healing. And even though I've been put through the ringer, I'm really focused on my healing because I know that when I feel good, then I can do great things for others. And when I feel crappy, I'm useless. So I'm grateful. I am so grateful to be taking the best stuff available on the market. And there's no two ways about it. Chris, the one thing that I heard you say that's unsafe for human consumption, some of the lesser quality or rancid or sonicated, can you remind us of what to look for when you're buying C60?
Well, yeah, I mean, the first recommendation, obviously, would be to buy from us. You know, we've been manufacturing and distributing carbon nanomaterials since 1991. And we've got a lab, we know what we're doing, and we were forced to deliver, not that it was ever a challenge, but we were forced to deliver to research institutions who could test our product and confirm that we were selling them what we said we were selling them from 1991 all the way through 2017. And so that's in our pedigree. But things that you want to look for if you're considering going somewhere else is you want to make sure that it's a legitimate, not a fly-by-night organization, that they invest in their own product. So a company that's a PO box or a company that doesn't have a phone number. These are things that would make me uncomfortable if I were going to, you know, buy something and put it in my body. You also, just to know that there's people who are suggesting things that are not right. So there's on Amazon, there's this company that sells these capsules. You really need 20 capsules to get what we would consider a regular dose. They're suggesting only 2 capsules. My concern is that somebody gets excited and they want to go out and try C60 instead of ESS60, and then they get these capsules and they take 2 of them. and because it's 1/10 of the standard dose, that they're not getting any the benefits that they can, and so then they go and tell all their friends that, oh, this is not real. So yeah, those are the kinds of things that you want to look for. Not a fly by night. Typically, you want to, if they're only on Amazon, then they're not in it for the long haul. If they don't have a website, they're not in it for a long haul. If you can't call them and speak to somebody immediately, they're not in it on the long haul. We've got. We were recently, Patty and I got on Coast to Coast Radio, and we actually increased our positive reviews by like 50 from being on Coast to Coast Radio. And that's, so most people who get on Coast to Coast Radio, their businesses kind of implode, right? The website no longer works because it can't handle it. The staff is overwhelmed. They can't deliver product. And in the middle of what usually causes problems for a company, we actually over delivered. And so those are the things that I would be looking for in a company that I, especially if I'm going to put it in my body.
Right, and you have addressed the issue of 99.95 versus 99.99% purity. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, so that remaining, so of the 99.95, the 0.05 is C70 or higher fullerenes. There's no research on C70 or higher fullerenes in any research really. So, well, not any research, in any kind of mammal research. If you, there's actually lots of research on C70 for industrial applications. When you get to 99.99, you've actually purified this pretty much as you can. There's really, as a scientist, I can tell you, you're never going to get to 100% purity of like C60. And so it's important from our science pedigree, the research is on C60, the research isn't on C70. Maybe that had a detrimental effect in that original research. It still showed a 90% extension of life, but we don't know what impact that percentage of C70 or higher fullerenes had. It's a totally different molecule. And so we really have only ever sold in our oil 99.99% pure. And then again, C60 is for industrial applications. ESS60 is C60 that's been processed for safer human consumption.
Right. Well, we're now up at the magical 60-minute mark, which is a good mark because that's sort of where people's attention is at a peak. Are there any things that you had wanted to bring up on the show that you haven't had a chance to bring up at this point, Chris, and then Patty?
I think we've covered most of what we were hoping to cover.
Okay, Patty.
I want to talk about the C60 EVO store because I believe it's the biggest one online with the most offerings, and to inspire people to get a discount because everybody complains about the price. It is an investment, but when you stop buying those 15 other things or those 3 other things that probably cost that much and you feel better with just one product, it's a no-brainer. But we do offer 20% discount to anybody signing up for a subscription. And you can also use Alfred's code, ALWSPEC, Alfred Lambremont Webre, SPEC, because he's so special. And you'll get the 5% off one time for when you first do whatever you order. But if you order a subscription, you get 20% off. So now you're at 20% off and then 5% with Alfred's thing. It saves you a lot of money to get a subscription. And it also, once you set it up, you get your bottle monthly. Even if we run low, which we probably won't because we're with them, you'll always get your product on time. And they are meticulous about being on time. So another offering is a case. If people feel like they've got a few friends, they all want to buy some, 25% off. Plus Alfred's code if you want it, which is one time gets you a real bump. So there is nice discounts available. There's 3 flavors, 4 sizes. I got the big one because I'm a chugger. Look at this next to my head. This is a big bottle. It's 32 ounces. Of course you have one, Chris. Brag, brag. You've got like 100 of them. But I'm proud to have mine as big as my head. And I just pour it in my smaller bottle, which I did this morning because I ran out. But we have 4 ounce, 8 ounce, 16 ounce, 32 ounce subscriptions, cases, and wonderful discounts. The other thing we did at Christmas was special deal collection sets, and those are really wonderful also. They are already discounted. You can get all 3 flavors in a 4 ounce bottle in a gift box. It's called the sampler set, so that you can try all 3, because there might be days where you don't want C60 so strong, where the coconut oil would be the perfect choice. Or, if, you know, whatever, it's a mood thing, but to have all 3 flavors is kind of a cool thing. I started with that one. People with dogs, there's a dog lover set that has a bottle for the dog, 3 ounce dog formulation that has natural bacon essence. Dogs love it. My friend with the 2 dachshunds, it's going to soon become our video C60 dogs. She said they lapped it up out of the cap and they wanted more. So adding that bacon flavor, crisp, right move. And the kitties, also there's a cat lover set, 1 for the cat, 1 for the person. And that one is, they're all $35 off if you buy the set, so that saves you money also. But then you and your cat can sign up for the monthly subscription, then your cat won't beg you for C60. And that one is flavored with natural salmon essence. So it's kind of a real human planning situation and pet planning situation where we're really trying to appeal to people and animals in a flavor and that they will enjoy. So I think it's nice having 3 flavors, but I am forcing myself to only be doing olive oil now. And it was a force because I do like coconut better, but it has so little taste that I really don't notice it. And I notice the buzz and the energy. So I am grateful, and the store is fabulous, and you guys ship out really fast. I just love being the promoter because all I have is bragging to say about what you guys do down there in Texas. Thank you. And thank you, Alfred. I think you have probably the most worldwide audience of any host I've worked with. Every time I do a show with you, orders came in from Israel, Switzerland, Sweden, South Africa, Norway, Australia, Canada, of course, where you are. But I mean, every time we do a show with you, it is so many countries that write us. It's wonderful. So good job, Alfred. You're doing an amazing service to the world, and I really appreciate you.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, and I'm so glad to have linked up in time and space with you and with ESS60. And so I thank you very much for coming on to ExopoliticsTV today and for your support of ExopoliticsTV. And we look forward to being with you again. And again, that's C60EVO.com.
Yep.
Until soon, we're on live on Facebook now, and we'll be stopping that, and